From Chuck Norris's Institute for Award-Winning Acting, Directing, Producing, and just being a celebrity. This is Kurt Berglund with Japanese baseball. Yes, there's two questions, my friends, that I'm constantly being asked. One of them is too personal to go into, but the other one is, Kurt, how do you do Japanese baseball research? Well, I'll tell you how, my friends. I'll tell you how in this video. My research and my interest in Japanese baseball started 5 or 6 years ago when I started to read about the amazing things that Sadaharu accomplished during his career. And that spread and spread and spread. And eventually, I got into the history of the game, and I asked, about this time last year, I was doing a lot of research on Japanese baseball, and I asked my good friend James Formo at Pine Tar Baseball if I could put together a set of cards for Pine Tar Baseball based on Japanese stats, and he said yes, and that was how these cards came into being. But to do the cards, to do the research for the cards, I used basically 4 main sources. The first one is Baseball Guru, that has a whole page or a section on Japanese baseball put together by Jim Albright. And there is just everything is there. Stats are there. Anecdotal data is there. Quantitative, qualitative, you name it. There's a lot of stuff there. Seamheads has some good stuff on Japanese baseball, seamheads.com. And then I got my hands on a couple of other things. One is a book called Japanese Baseball, a Statistical Handbook. And it's written by, or was written by, Daniel E. Johnson. And what it contains is season leaders as well as award winners for the for Japanese baseball, record holders, and it runs, this copy runs through the 1997 season, which is pretty much far enough to get you to the online stuff, so it fills in the gaps for older Japanese baseball history. It's called Japanese Baseball, a Statistical Handbook by Daniel E. Johnson. It was a huge help. I like books anyway, and this one was really helpful to go through and see who the leaders were. I was looking to put together this set of cards, and these are the great players in Japanese baseball history, and this book really pointed me toward what I needed to know about many of those guys. The second book that I wanted to bring your attention to is Good for Negro Leagues Research. It's just an interesting book to have. It does not have data in it per se, but it does have a ranking of the greatest Japanese players in history, along with Negro Leagues and a lot of other ethnic groups kind of broken out. And it's by William F. McNeil, who's written a bunch of stuff on the Negro Leagues, but other baseball too. It's called Baseball's Other All-Stars. You can pick it up pretty cheap, I think, although there aren't a lot of copies around. So you got to kind of watch, and this is a wonderful source to use to kind of point you in the right direction. Who are the greats in Japanese baseball history? And then I want to put in a plug for robfitts.com, robfitts.com. This man is huge on Japanese baseball history, especially in those angles that we don't often think about. He wrote a book on Wally Yanamine, who was a Hawaiian who broke into Japanese baseball in the 50s and faced all sorts of discrimination because he was Hawaiian, an American breaking into Japanese baseball, and he was an amazing player as well. Well, what this book is Remembering Japanese Baseball, and these are non-Japanese players who broke into Japanese baseball. Some of them are Americans, some of them are white, some of them are Latins, the whole different ranges. This is kind of the glory of their times for Japanese baseball from the perspective of outsiders. And so if you're interested, this is called Remembering Japanese Baseball, an Oral History of the Game, and it's by Robert K. Fitz. But Robert Fitz has his own website, robfitz.com, and there's a bunch of books that are great. I've read 3 or 4 of them so far, and his writing is great. His questions of his interview subjects are great. I really can't recommend his work strongly enough. So, if you're interested in Japanese baseball or certainly doing research and you want to build on, take some advice from someone who's done some research, you want to go to baseballguru.com. Seamheads has some stuff there as well on Japanese baseball, seamheads.com. The book Japanese Baseball, a Statistical Handbook, is a little expensive, but worth it if you can get your hands on a copy. Baseball's Other All-Stars by William F. McNeil, and Robert Fitz's books, including, but not limited to, Remembering Japanese Baseball, an Oral History of the Game. These were the sources, these were the things that I used in putting together the Pine Tar Baseball Japanese card set of great Japanese players and great foreign players who broke into Japanese baseball at various points during Japanese baseball, earlier Japanese baseball history. So, if you're interested in Japanese baseball, I recommend these sources, and I hope you enjoy. If you have questions for me or anything I can point you in the direction for, please feel free to ask me questions or write comments in the area below. Thanks again. I hope you have a good day. My name's Kurt Berglund. So long, everybody.